He might be watching from afar. So it is past 9 o'clock, so the Regulatory Committee hearing the draft traffic and parking bylaw reconvenes and opens a meeting that was adjourned from last Monday. And before the meeting, and if there's any members of the public listening, welcome, and maybe the Gisborne Herald, welcome. It was just to have some additional information provided to the hearings panel. And so we have a document, thank you, Mr. Gilmore, that traverses some of the issues that were raised. And I'd just like to pass over to you, and we note the content on vehicles and beaches, the heavy vehicle route restriction, some discussion around Kings Road, Harper Road, some discussion around Bushmere Road as a state highway, skateboards and e-scooters on in the CBD. And I note that you have provided for us an alternate with respect to the heavy transport route. And we also have a draft idea of what the resolution register might look like. That's not part of the discussion for today, but it's provided for us so that we understand. It will report on the locations that any new bylaw might impact on, and that will be provided to council at the time that this draft bylaw is confirmed. So thank you for what that looks like. So can we just go to perhaps a couple of the more contentious issues that were raised by members of the public who have views both for and against, for the notes you provided us on vehicles on beaches, and I acknowledge Councillor Foster and Councillor Forrihinger as part of the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, committee. Where to begin? Do you want me to go through what we've written here, or just try and summarise and so on? I'm happy for this document to be circulated quite widely. Basically, all issues concerned are raised. Well, something that staff wanted to get across to the submitters around the vehicles on beaches. All issues and concerns raised are valid and significant, and council staff want the residents of Makarori to know that they have been heard, that we agree with their assessment, and that above all, that action is required. Our concern is that a bylaw restricting vehicles on beaches is unlikely to achieve the outcomes they're seeking. And so the rest of it really is discussing how we want to wrap that whole approach up in some solid strategy around the various things we can do, sort out what's the best way to restrict access. Because vehicles on beaches bylaws work where access is limited to the beach. They do not where it is not. And so it's part of the whole package. And so what we're really probably discussing is the phasing of when this might take place rather than the effort.
Can I ask you, the Makarori Master Plan has been referred to a number of times. Are council officers familiar with when that work might begin, and then how long is it going to take? Thank you.
I can talk there if you like, Councillor Seymour. So councils will be getting an update report on the work and the progress of it at the 30th of December council meeting.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, so at this stage we've worked through the project planning. The consultant, I think, has perhaps made some initial contact with some of the members of the community, and the intent is to have a community style meeting workshop going forward with community engagement under level 2. We've just been trying to work through what that looks like and how it works. So that's sort of currently where we're at, but there will be a report on the 13th of December.
So it is, and the work is imminent in effect.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Thank you. Councillor Forrihinger has a question.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, staff. In regards to this first chunk around vehicles on the beaches, I had asked, and in the minutes, it's page 25, page 25, I had asked about us still being able to restrict vehicle access, but then also to manage expectation with the community around enforcement, because I feel like our community doesn't understand that we're limited on our ability to be able to enforce, and that would be, as you're rightly outlined in here, it'll be very difficult and costly. And I feel that some of the submitters kind of spoke to that, but they were more kind of saying, actually, the restriction should just be something that's done regardless. That's not kind of spoken to in here. Did staff want to comment on if we were to restrict what education campaign managing expectation with the communities would look like?
Certainly, it's a tricky one because if you discuss your inability to enforce too widely and too broadly and too regularly, then that will drive down compliance with the bylaw regardless. So managing expectations will be key, and I think is implicitly understood by the committee if we were to go down the road of imposing the bylaw sooner rather than later. The education piece would be very important around why we're doing this. We would have to wrap it in a lot of communications with all the various user groups, and it would become part of the consultation through the master plan as well. So I think all I can really say to that is there'll be a lot of design work involved in how we approach managing expectations. And I'm not a communications expert, so I don't know how that would play out. But your observation is absolutely true. If we were to go down the road of restricting sooner rather than later, then that will be a key piece of it. I just don't know how the exact method we would employ to play that out.
Just
Does
to
that answer
add-
your question?
Just to add to that, just from observation, because I drive past it so often, there were 14 additional access ways have been created along Makarori Beach from the car park at the north end to the, and I didn't count the second car park next to the formal surface car park at the south end. So 14 different access ways have just been created by people choosing to drive in or out of those. And that is the issue that locals have raised with NZTA over a long period of time. And that's really what they want to see roll out of. And even that would be a start. So all of that material is with council officers with respect to the work that they're doing. So it's just good to know that the master plan is moving along. We'll have a report on the December meeting. Thank you for that. You have one question too.
Yeah,
Thank you, Councillor.
The people involved with roaring up and down the beach, if you restrict them from one area, they're going to want to go to another area. and I know Coyote Beach will be the preferred other area. So is there an opportunity for us to have a designated area that vehicles are allowed on a beach, which is way out of people's way? I mean,
Thank you. Can I say, Councillor Foster, you need to raise that at the meeting when the management plan comes in. That's really not a part of this bylaw for the moment, is it? It's new material to suggest.
It's new material and will require additional consultation, but it also wouldn't be a matter for the Makarori plan. It would be a matter for this bylaw, but probably for a future resolution under this bylaw. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But
I don't think
I can still look into
today.
it and try and feed that back in a future report.
Yeah.
If there was a location we could identify, it's always going to have an effect wherever this happens.
It'll have a detrimental effect on biodiversity if we identified a place where you can just go speeding for the sake of it. I think they go to one end of the beach to the other, less about just doing this for fun.
I think the point about displacement though is well made and something that we will need to consider. They will head somewhere, be it Puawa, Turihau, further north, and so on, further south into the river and so on. So that is displacement will be a piece of this conversation.
Thank you. Sorry, do you have anything further, Councillor Foster?
No.
So we move to the heavy vehicle route restrictions. We note the feedback that you've given us subsequent, and quite significant comment has been made in the material from Whakakotahi around the planning required for intersections, and that none of that work has happened to date, and that nothing is allowed for in the 21 to 24 LTP. And I think you note that further over.
I believe I did, yes.
Is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I feel like that's well wrapped up now from our perspective.
And the issue of Kings versus Harper is there for our information.
Yep.
And likewise over Bushmere and State Highway, that's just information that was re-raised.
It was raised, so we went and had a look and addressed it as best as the written record we had access to allows. So.
Thank you. I think the matter of skateboards and e-scooters needed clarification, so I think we should spend a moment or two on that. Thank you. I thank you for the comment you've made here. you have a comment?
Any specific questions, or I think we clarified as best we can. E-scooters are considered through all the guidance and so on. They're appropriate for the footpath by Waka Kotahi and so on. They in terms of definitions. What was raised by the submitter, I think, is what I'm trying to say, that that Waka Kotahi's own guidance does not provide for e-scooters to be used on the footpaths was not our reading of Waka Kotahi's guidance, nor when we spoke to Sarah Downs from Waka Kotahi.
Can I just ask supplementary to
Please.
that then? On the material, the draft material you provided on the end of the day, under skateboards, it's at the bottom of the page. E-scooters are fast. Oh, that's sorry, but cannot be driven quickly. That's sorry, it's not that question. That's the third bullet point. Could amend the decision to exclude e-scooters. So I think we need to have a conversation about that, because I think that's what we were hearing around the concern. So you're now saying, from the advice you've had from Waka Kotahi, that e-scooters can't be banned from the footpath?
No, this bylaw could in theory separate out the e-scooters. There'd be through a resolution as well. But that is possible. It would not be supported by Waka Kotahi. It probably wouldn't achieve all of the objectives of what we're discussing here and so on. I think the important fact to matter to remember, are you looking at my draft notes from the first night? Yes. So those, I had to do some more thinking around that space, so I apologize, that has changed a bit. But the point remains, you would be allowed to use an e-scooter under what is being proposed through that cobbled section of Gladstone, that busy area there, but or any of these vehicles except for bicycles. But if you were to handle them in a manner that was inappropriate for the area or would have caused danger and so on, then our City Watch people would be all over you, as they are now. So it remains to the onus on the owner to operate the vehicle with a safe manner in those areas. I don't think the surface in there lends itself to any of these vehicles being driven at anything approaching speed yet. I do very much hear the concerns of that the pedestrian advocacy group, and that's about all we have to say on the matter. I think.
Thank you. We will have a conversation about that later. Thank you.
But I apologise. Those draft notes, I've moved on from that thinking. I think ring fencing e-scooters would be difficult and complex to do in the resolution and to enforce, and not really achieve the objectives anyway.
One could imagine it could be quite dangerous on the roadway as well, with cars backing out into.
I think with our angle
the
parking,
road pavement with the angle parking, so they are fraught with difficulties.
it is.
So to move to the second page of the material provided, or page 3, we note the comment around heavy traffic bylaw, heavy traffic restrictions, and that we will have further conversation around that when we deliberate. Do you want to ask any further questions around the heavy traffic?
Have we noted my error in language?
Yeah, it should not read in regard to the option to defer deliberations. It was just simply the
Adjourn deliberations. Apologies.
And it was for more information and to meet timeframes. We note the resolution register for the record. Would you like to just clarify for everybody, because Councillor Forrigan wasn't here when we had an early discussion around the resolution register example?
Yes, so this provides an example of how the resolution register applies the rules in the bylaw to specific locations. What you see in that first figure 2 example is what we refer to as the carryover resolutions. That's everything that is currently in the bylaw that's been consulted upon. We consulted upon basically what's installed on the network. It's the best way to think about it. Any submissions around what's installed on the network will be addressed. And we did receive some, actually. They didn't obviously receive a lot of attention through these hearings, but there are some changes that will be considered to what's installed on the network in various locations. But this is the carryover resolutions. They go into a big package. And then there's the new resolutions that we consulted on. Those are in the statement of proposal. They cover things like the changes to the e-scooters, the heavy vehicle route restrictions, the inner harbour parking, for example, the ability to enforce the inner harbour boat trailer parking being the key piece. So these
just summarise it.
Yep.
Replaces the schedule.
Replaces the schedules, gives us greater flexibility moving forward. And that's why.
So that's just there as a sample. You don't know that you're asking. Thank you. And then the one-way road comment, you've made some highlighted points here.
more just model examples of how that part of the resolutions will look. And for example, with the so there's a model resolution. So all resolutions will follow the same format. This has been this is from Auckland Transport's model resolutions process, and legal counsel have said this is the way that we will approach it. So all resolutions moving forward, you won't see carryover resolutions in a table again. You'll see a single resolution referring to a single group change.
Thank you.
Simple as that.
Thank you for the additional information. Do you have any further information around any part of the bylaw, Councillor Forrington? Please.
Can you come back to me, please, Madam
Yeah,
Chair?
sure.
Thank you.
I'll just give Councillor Foster, you've got a comment?
No, I'm fine.
You're fine. We'll just take 5 minutes to come back and query any questions, and then we'll close the meeting.
I'll kind of frame it generally. I wanted my question to be very specific, but one thing that we spoke about in our closing comments was also the balance of Ormond and Awapuni, and that's not spoken to, of utilising both Ormond and Awapuni, because there were some submitters that came to us and spoke to us about the utilisation of both, and that hasn't been kind of spoken to in this part. Like, not
I
that
think
that
it's
has
covered by that, but in different language.
the yeah. I'm not meaning in regards to where we'll put it in terms of the resolution. I'm talking about our
Decision around.
the decision around it. That's more what I'm asking about.
Sure. I think from a staff point of view, what was raised by the submitters, what's in our report is as much as we can add on
Okay.
that matter. I think that the submitters have raised their point. They've brought up that element of balance. I think that was also part of council's initial decision in August 2020 when considering which route proposals to adopt and consult on within the bylaw. So I just don't think we have any further to add on that.
Okay. No, that's fine. Thank you very much, Mr.
Right.
Gilmore.
Thank you, councillor.
Was there anything else? Anything else? Because I'm going to close the meeting in a moment. I think we just need to be cognizant in our deliberations, and I just want to sum this up since Whakakotahi are not here, in the comment that they've made around any planned improvements for intersections, that there's no funding allowed for that, at least in the 21 to 24 LTP. And that is, so we just need to note the advice from Whakakotahi, albeit by letter rather than actually by submission, but contained within the material that is in front of this committee.
Right.
So I think we should just note that. I have no further questions. Do the council officers have anything further you wish to add? Then thank you very much for making time available this morning and coming back to this committee. And we will now close the meeting and we will deliberate on the recommendations to the bylaw. So thank you to anyone who's listening. Thank you, Ms. Conn.